in the paper there are three type of questions. One is the direct questions. Second category is the tricky questions. And the third category is the exceptional questions. And if you remember, I told you this is somewhere between 0 to 20%. This is between 40 to 50%, and this is also 40 to 50%. We know that these two areas dominate the paper of UPSC. And this is always there. Some questions will be there, although some years there will be very little questions. But normally around 10% of the questions are exceptional questions. And this rule is also applicable to mains. The paper is difficult or easy. We classify on the basis of the relative share of these questions. If there are too many tricky questions, if there is more number of tricky questions which are present, then we will definitely say that the paper was difficult. If there is more direct questions, or if the share of direct questions is reaching 40-50%, actually then we will say that the paper was relatively easy. Okay? So again, we find that this year paper was relatively easy because there were lots of direct questions in the paper. Okay? But think about a scenario where what happened, where there was your core syllabus. There was core of the syllabus. Okay. And then there is what we call it as, you can call it as updation or some additional reading. ठीक है. So ये दो चीजें तुम्हें प्रिपेयर करनी है, core syllabus and this updation or additional things. And what is the trend every year? In normal circumstances, if you are a guidance student, and again फिर से मैं बता रहा हूँ, guidance student, I am using the word because you know you have been my student, how we do here, the depth of the classes, because I don't leave that traditional part, the core part, for you to be done elsewhere. वो core part में cover करा देता हूँ. So if you are a guidance student, normally in the choice based questions, what you will get? In the choice based questions, you will get at least three which were more or less direct from the classes, and एक होता है direct, एक होता है semi direct और एक होता है indirect. So direct and semi direct will give you at least three choice based questions, वो मिल जाएंगे सीधे सीधे. And then there is the compulsory questions. Compulsory questions में at least 3 to 4 questions were not at all covered. They were not covered. But if we talk about the rest, they were well covered. ठीक है. We will see कि इस बार भी ट्रेंड कुछ ऐसा ही है. थोड़ा सा it is little bit more liberal. There were more questions which were within the range. So again, the paper, that is why I am saying it was comparatively easy. But देखते हैं अभी कैसे होगा क्या. In paper 1, if we look into this year, no doubt compulsory question तो करने ही है. Choice based questions, if you are a guidance student, I am saying, not otherwise. If you are a guidance student, maybe if you are not a guidance student, maybe other questions you would have read from the books, so maybe they were better for you. But if you were a guidance student, question number 2, question number 7 and question number 8 were the questions which you should have chosen. Why I am saying this? Because they were directly dealt in the classes, and these were also the questions which were more traditional type, where the answer is more or less fixed. That means the answer that you will be writing, if you know the answer of these questions, it will not be very far away from the model answer which the examiner has in his mind or in a written form, whatever, how he is checking the copy. And if you are able to put little bit of your inputs in the form of good drawing good diagrams, citing some, if you talk about examples here and there, you will fairly, very easily cross over 60% in these questions. ठीक है? अगर मैं पहले choice पे जाता हूँ, फिर I'll come back to the compulsory questions. So question number 2, as I said, was the one which, if I was a student and particularly guidance student, I would have chosen this question. So concept of plate tectonics has been derived from isostasy and continental drift theory. Elaborate, citing suitable examples. Here the keyword was elaborate. That means you didn't have to write much critique of this. You just have to elaborate. So we know that the idea of isostasy is basically what? It was the law of flotation. We also have seen the history of the development of isostasy, those who belong to the July batch. And we also know the continental drift theory, how it talked about various aspects. Okay? So in this answer, around 80% will go to elaboration of this part. However, just as a part of conclusion, I will also mention, do you remember when we were talking about continental drift theory, I was very specific in talking about this, that continental drift theory didn't directly influence the development of plate tectonics theory. It only had an indirect influence on the development. So again, that part where I have to say that these isostasy or continental drift didn't have the direct influence. They just had in more indirect influence. Isostasy has, we can say isostasy had more comparatively direct influence than if you talk about the continental drift theory. There were more other type of, if you talk about studies, which had more direct influence. If you remember the convection current theory, the if you talk about the mapping of the sea floor, distribution of earthquakes and volcanoes, yes, the post-drift studies had more direct influence. But because the keyword here is elaborate, my focal point should be explanation on justifying what is written, explaining what is written. If I have to write the other part, it is only the last 2 paragraphs are there for you, where you can just mention that. Okay? But again, tell me, this question, plate tectonics, yaad hai, when we were starting with tectonic geomorphology, did I tell you that from past 3 years we are seeing that tectonic geomorphology is now again being asked? Starting from 2009 itself, 2009 to 2017, tectonic geomorphology, like UPSC, had forgotten that it even exists. But 3 years down the line, regularly every year there was at least one question. And this is the part of geomorphology, this is a part of syllabus which is very easy to prepare. So again, this is something which I always tell my students. बहुत सारे बच्चे थे जो एग्जाम के बीच में भी they were afraid of geomorphology. They asked me, should we leave geomorphology? I suggested them just do the surface, the topics which are directly more given in the syllabus. More tectonic geomorphology should be something which has to be prepared. You cannot leave that, because if the question comes from there, and it will be one of the easiest question of the paper. Okay? So again, it was one of the easiest question of the paper. As I told you, I will be taking a detailed discussion of what had to be written, etc., later on, probably later this week. So that is one. Then give a detailed account of the bottom topography of the Pacific Ocean. Very, very direct question. इससे ज़्यादा direct question हो नहीं सकता. Soil erosion and soil degradation are threat to food supply. Discuss. Again, a very straightforward question. Soil erosion and soil degradation are threat to food supply. Discuss. Keyword here is discussion. So tell me, can we say that no doubt I will agree with this statement? Soil erosion and soil degradation are threat to food security. But should I also identify, or food supply, should I also identify that there are other threats as well to food supply? Yes or no? Yes, there should be, because the keyword here is discuss. There can be even technocentric arguments against this. But because this is a kind of, we can say that there was environment related issue, and we are in the era of environmentalism, as I have told you. We have to agree that it is a threat. Important thing is, अब इसमें भी बहुत सारी चीजें होंगी when you are proving, when you are justifying this statement. So soil erosion and soil degradation. अब मुझे बताओ कि does this question requires that I draw a map, world map of soil erosion and degradation regions? Yes or no? If on the same map, if I am able to also highlight, crops के नाम लिखे जा सकते हैं, like for example for wheat I can write W, for rice I can write R. If on the same map, if I can superimpose the major food producing regions of the world, zones of the world, will it be better able to connect this threat? Yes or no? Yes, अगर तुम्हें justify करने के लिए इंडिया का देना है तो even India, world will be an ideal case. If you are not prepared, you have to give. ठीक है, बट मैं गारंटी दे सकता हूं, गारंटी कि 99% लोगों ने ये डायग्राम्स के बारे में सोचा भी नहीं होगा, और वो डिस्कस वाला जो पार्ट है, अदर फैक्टर्स, वो 95% ने नहीं सोचा होगा. ठीक है, it was so much straightforward question, little bit tricky no doubt, because you had to connect two different concepts. But अगर मेरे बेसिक्स बहुत क्लियर हैं, सॉइल इरोजन एंड सॉइल डिग्रेडेशन एंड फूड सप्लाई, कहां से फूड सप्लाई आती है, I just have to combine, superimpose both of them, connect both of them to each other, and will I get a very good answer? Tell me. Yes or no? Obviously, yes. ठीक है। यू हैव टू डिस्कस का मतलब क्या होता है? इफ आई रीड दिस स्टेटमेंट, टेल मी, डज दिस स्टेटमेंट लुक्स incomplete to me? No doubt I will agree with soil erosion and degradation are threat to food supply, but are there other factors to food supply which are also threat? Yes, they are. Like for example, tell me, if are political conflicts, will it mean that there will be threats to food supply in particular regions? If there are inequalities, are they also threats to food supply to particular class of people? Yes or no? Obviously yes. If we are unable to develop the technology, if our technology stagnates, is it also a threat to food supply? Yes, it is. ठीक है? So no doubt in this question you had to write 60%, 70% in favor of this. But can I say you'll highlight also the other aspects, other threats of food supply? Obviously yes, that is for me discussion. ठीक है? I am finding the incompleteness of the statement and I am giving almost 25%, 30% of the weightage to the second part as well. ठीक है? So that is question number 2. अब ये देखने में ये questions कितने easy लग रहे हैं, but do you get my point कि there will be actually very less number of people who will score 60% marks in this question. What was the reason? Tell me. What was the reason why they will not score? Because basics नहीं किया था. Similarly, if we move question number 3, अगर कोई मेरा स्टूडेंट है तो he will be like little bit compelled after seeing the first question itself. He will be very much compelled कि मैं इस question को attempt करता हूँ. Examine the major factors for varied patterns of precipitation on the continent. और अगर July batch you have seen climatology, do you remember we talked about 2 category of factors, zonal factors, non-zonal factors. उस तरह से अगर तुम इस आंसर को लिखते हो, can you imagine how much the examiner will be impressed by your writing? It is very much possible that you can get even 70-75% marks in this question if you write it like this, along with the map or a diagram showing the difference in or the variability of precipitation. ठीक है? Examine the major influencing factors for varied patterns of precipitation on the continents. ठीक है? Suppose you are a student and you have attended this question. Tell me, pattern में can I say सब भूल जाएंगे कि इसमें temporal pattern भी होना चाहिए? Majority of them will just think about spatial pattern. Yes or no? Can I say are there temporal variations in precipitation? Like हमने एक टॉपिक किया था सिलेबस अपनी क्लास में, precipitation regime, where I told you how to draw the climatograph. याद है? So ज्यादातर लोग क्या करेंगे इसमें? They'll just write the spatial variability and this is a 20 marks और बस खत्म. एंड जब घर पे आएंगे तो इसमें नंबर कितने जोड़ेंगे? दे विल ऐड एटलीस्ट इसमें 12 से 14 नंबर तो मिल ही जाएगा, 12 to 14. बट थिंक अगेन, if you haven't written the temporal aspect, do you really think you'll get this much marks? I don't think so. If I was checking, I would not give. And I really believe UPSC teachers are very quality teachers. So really, I don't think that they will be giving you this much marks. You are set for disappointment. आगे बढ़ते हैं. Maritime security is being neglected. Indicate the major challenges and suggest solutions in the context of the law of seas. So we had done in the one of the tests, one question tha, which we talked about how the maritime or law of sea is being, if you talk about, violated by many countries. We particularly asked in the context of China. So again, lots of material which was used there, that same content would have been little bit changed and this answer could have been written. Okay. Explaining the concept of carbon neutrality, describe the measures taken by carbon positive and negative nations. अब मुझे एक चीज इन क्वेश्चंस को पढ़ के समझ में आ रहा है. क्वेश्चन नंबर 3B and 3C. टेल मी, डोंट यू थिंक कि देयर इज लिटिल बिट मोर सब्जेक्टिविटी इन्वॉल्व? Yes or no? There is more subjectivity involved in these questions. ठीक है. So maritime security is being neglected. In what aspect the maritime security is being neglected? How you define security? Because security, if you know, it has variety of dimensions. So if I just go into defining the term security itself, lots of subjectivity would emerge. Similarly, explaining the concept of carbon neutrality, describe the measures taken by carbon positive and carbon negative nations. So I would say that this was more of a kind of traditional and little bit factual type of answer. Second part of this, there was no problem in explaining what is carbon neutrality. The main problem was you should have that information where you will be taking examples. Remember, nations likha hua hai. So you should know some examples of carbon positive and some examples of carbon negative nations. ठीक है. देखो, that is the thing na. Aman, you try to understand. You are saying, Aman is asking here, can we use the concept of dynamic equilibrium? Yes, you can use. And you yourself have proved here what I was just now talking about. Can I say there is subjectivity? Is the answer of these questions fixed like the answer of the previous questions we talked about? It is not fixed. Does this means that if I make an error in understanding of the question of what is expected by the examiner, I will lose marks? And these questions are really very applied questions. ठीक है. So again, if possible, देखो, अगर मुझे मजबूरी में अटेंड करना पड़ता है, because I know so many students की मजबूरी थी ये क्वेश्चन अटेंड करना, to attempt this question because of one basic mistake, question number 2B. Because this question is quite factual. If you don't remember the facts, you will not try to attempt. You will think कि कम से कम इसमें कुछ तो लिख लूंगा, 3B में, 3C में कुछ तो लिख लूंगा. Do you get my point, what I'm trying to say? So if you just didn't had the basic, the core on your tongues, this will be the problem that you will be facing in the examination. You will have to attend the subjective questions where there is no guarantee how many marks you will get. Then 4A with suitable examples, elaborate the human ecological adaptations, explain its impact on ecology and environment in various parts of the world. So again, a very straightforward question. Two topics they have mixed here. If you look into environment geography, human ecological adaptations is one topic, and impact of humans on environment and ecology is a topic which is just given after that. So what they did, दो क्वेश्चंस को कंबाइन करके उन्होंने एक क्वेश्चन बना दिया, and again you can see it is at 20 marks. That means you'll get 4 pages. You can devote at least 1.5 page for each of these, answering each of these. ठीक है, बट दिस इज समथिंग वे बहुत ट्रेडिशनल है, ऑप्शनल में भी करवाता हूँ, 500 में भी करवाता हूँ. सो इट इज समथिंग विच इज गिवन. तो ये स्टूडेंट्स को पक्का आता होगा, 100% आता होगा. मेरे स्टूडेंट ने अगर पढ़ा है, रिवाइज किया है कंटेंट क्लास का, तो ही वुड बी नोइंग, एंड दिस विल अगेन टेम्प्ट हिम to go for this question also. But if I look into the other question, stream basins and drainage divides are important components to delineate a watershed area. Stream basins and drainage divides are important components to delineate a watershed area. Explain. Now, if I just think about this watershed area, I know that watershed is basically what? Is it a planning region? Yes, it is a planning region. And if it is a planning region, I know that planning region is equal to formal plus functional regions. So how drainage stream basins and drainage divides are the factors which would determine whether it is formal or how they are behaving as the formal factors and the functional factors, and thus they are important components of delineation. Keyword here is what? Delineation. याद है मैंने तुम लोगों को regions के बारे में बताया था when we were talking about sphere of influence, because we haven't reached to that regional planning topic till now. But in sphere of influence, I have explained you 3 types of regions are there. Do you remember that? So again, using that regional concept, you could have written this answer. But मुझे सच में लगता है कि जो students हैं, majority of them, 99.9% of them here in this case, wouldn't have been able to decode like this, how I have decoded just now. Do you get my point? So for them, it is again what? Subjective. Indicating the causes of lightning, describe the threats associated with it. You know, this year lightning से death वेथ हो गई थी बहुत सारी. So GS में भी कवर था और तुम्हारा न्यूज़ लेटर्स में भी हमने कवर किया था. ठीक है. So we were expecting, I was expecting that this question can be asked, but I was actually not expecting it for the optional. I was expecting that this may be asked for GS. ठीक है. I really didn't expect that they will be asking lightning question in the optional, but again they have surprised and they have asked. अब मैं lightning की बात करूं, optional, if you are an geography optional guidance batch student, have we done in the classes lightning, the 3 ways in which lightning is produced, how there is separation of the charges between in the cumulonimbus clouds between the top part and the bottom part. Once the separation is complete, how there is 3 ways in which the lightning is produced. So I think if you are a guidance main optional batch student, you will be able to do that. If you were belonging to the 500 plus में ये नहीं हुआ था. ठीक है, it was not covered in 500 plus, but it is something which is basic, which you should have studied from the book. ठीक है. So tell me, जब मैंने climatology तुम लोगों को पढ़ाना शुरू किया था, did I tell you one thing about climatology? That the type of questions which are being asked in climatology, the traditional approach is most suitable. Do you remember? बताया था मैंने, predict किया था कि they will surprise you. Am I proved correct here again in climatology? Yes or no? Similarly, क्या मैंने तुम लोगों को ओशिनोग्राफी स्टार्ट करने से पहले बताया था कि द बेस्ट थिंग अबाउट ओशिनोग्राफी इज दैट they are asking questions which are directly mentioned in the syllabus. Did I talk about this when I just began with oceanography? Is it correct? Yes, it is correct. You can see that. ठीक है? So that is section A, and I believe that depending upon probably अगर मैं खुद लिख रहा होता the level of knowledge I have, I would have probably chosen question number 2 and 4. But because I know most of the students will not be able to decode question number 4B and 4C पढ़ा ही नहीं होगा 90% के साथ केस ये होगा, they wouldn't have even studied 4C. So because of that, question number 4 तो out of perspective था for most of the students. However, if I was writing, maybe I would have chosen question number 4 because ये मेरे लिए बहुत physical geography always is something which is very objective. And in such objective type of questions, the chances that my answer will match with the model answer is very high. So why I am going to miss that opportunity? ठीक है? But again, as I told you, you need to have a very in-depth understanding. And physical geography में इस level of understanding के पहुंचने के लिए you have to actually work very hard to reach that level of understanding in physical geography. Because it is very much like science. Human geography में it is different. With limited of effort, you can reach to a very satisfactory level of preparation. And that is why I always recommend my students most of the time that it would be better if you go for human geography questions. ठीक है? Now coming to human geography. So again the choice type में पहले बात करते हैं. Question number 6. Development induced displacement poses serious challenges. Mention its causes, consequences and solutions. So development induced displacement. ठीक है? जब भी human related phenomena आता है तो what I do, I always tell my students to divide that into how there is directly influence and how it is affecting indirect. So tell me, does development has direct influence on displacement? Like when you are constructing your multi-purpose projects, etc., etc., do they lead to direct displacement of the people? Yes, they do. Is development even leading to indirect displacement today? Take the case of global warming. Is it development induced phenomena? Has IPCC proved that it is human induced? Is global warming causing displacement? Yes. ठीक है? So again, both should have been written with examples, some case studies if you can put here, you will get very, very good marks in this question. But the problem is, I really think most of the students, majority जब मैं बोल रहा हूँ तो it is above 90%. And in most cases it is 98-99%. वो डायरेक्ट इनडायरेक्ट वो भूल जाएंगे कि सर ने बताया था क्लास में ह्यूमन इंड्यूस्ड फिनोमेनास के लिए, ह्यूमन रिलेटेड फिनोमेनास के लिए डायरेक्ट और इनडायरेक्ट यूज करो फ्रेमवर्क. क्यों भूल जाएंगे? क्योंकि जो सर के नोट्स थे कोर वो तो किनारे हो गए, बिकॉज सर ने और भी चीजें, क्योंकि स्टूडेंट्स ने सर को फोर्स कर दिया, डिमांड अपनी खुद से फालतू की स्टूपिड डिमांड जनरेट कर दी कि आई वांट दिस, आई वांट दिस. तो ठीक है यार, इफ देर इज डिमांड, आई एम अ बिजनेसमैन, आई विल सप्लाई. डू यू गेट माई पॉइंट? And because of that, the most core things, the most basic things which were taught to you, you simply didn't have the time to make it your second personality. जैसे ही मैंने इस क्वेश्चन को देखा, सबसे पहले मेरे दिमाग में आया ह्यूमन फिनोमेना, सो डायरेक्ट एंड इनडायरेक्ट. Describe the role of accessibility and affordability in food security of developing world. ठीक है? So tell me, have we talked about this accessibility and affordability? Is it related to our formula of PAT? Yes, it is the topic which is related to resource. And tell me, accessibility and affordability, is it function of very important factors like affluence is the main factor which is asked here. But it would also be factor of technology, it would also be factor of your population. ठीक है? But again, can be used, should have been used in fact. Environmental issues are not adequately addressed in regional planning. Comment. Again, I would say this was a traditional question. So if you were prepared, maybe question number 6 could have been one of the questions which you could have gone for. But the thing about question number 6 is कि if I look into I need to have very good examples and case studies for fetching good marks in this question. Do you get my point? इसका कोई वैसा theoretical या एक fixed answer नहीं है. So here, whether I will get 40% marks or 60% marks, lot would depend upon my creativity. Then, question number 7 पर आते हैं. Suggest a criteria, indicators and techniques for delimitation of formal regions. A very, very traditional question with some examples which you normally traditional में भी पढ़ते हैं हम. Examples के साथ पढ़ते हैं इसको. So again, you could have talked about this. Boundaries are important in geopolitics. Explain what issues develop from inclusionary and exclusionary aspects of borders. This is one question which is tricky questions. Question में है, but why I am saying, why I said that question number 7 should have been done, because I'll just tell you हमने कौन से question पूछे थे exam में. I'll just read from there. Our question which was asked in the comprehensive test जो अभी हमने conduct किया था, borders are functional spaces which behave as barriers as well as bridges. Comment. So tell me, when I am talking about barriers, am I talking about the exclusion which is performed by borders and boundaries? And when I am talking about inclusion, am I talking about bridges? This was the question which we had asked this year in the paper. So again, just they have changed the wordings, inclusion and exclusion कर दिया, rather than bridges and boundaries, but more or less सीधा कंटेंट था. स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड अगर आपने केवल एक मटेरियल पर रिलाई किया होता, यू वुड हैव जस्ट ब्लास्टेड दिस. ठीक है. देन स्मॉल नंबर ऑफ मेगा सिटीज आर प्लेइंग की रोल इन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक्स एंड कल्चर. एक्सप्लेन. ये इतनी जगह पर मैं करवाता हूं कि आई डोंट इवन नीड टू टेल. इज इट अबाउट द वर्ल्ड सिटीज? Tell me, is it about the world cities? We all have done in the class. Was that map जो मैंने दिखाए थे तुम्हें, दिए भी थे, map with the world cities marked on them, was it very important key to scoring? Yes. ठीक है, बट फिर से मैं तुम्हें याद दिलाता हूं, despite all these three questions being very, very direct, whether you will be attempting this question, even if you are attempting, you might get 40%, you might get 60-70%. There is a difference. And it will all boil down to what? How much serious you were with the code which you had to study. ठीक है? Question number 8. Why is radicalism a major paradigm shift in geography? Explain its causes, approaches and criticism. Tell me, have we done this kind of questions related with paradigm shift? And have I given you a framework of how to write questions related with paradigm shift? How there was different approach? How the methodology was different? Subject matter, theoretical frameworks, exemplars, do you remember? Can we prove that it was a paradigm shift? Yes, we can do that. Explain its causes. Have we talked about the context of development? Have we talked about the three approaches which were part of radicalism? And we also have talked about the criticism. So can I say कि ये फोड़ने वाला क्वेश्चन था? एक्चुअली में ये फोड़ने वाला क्वेश्चन था. अब सीधी सी बात है कि यू रिमेंबर ऑल द पॉइंट्स और नॉट. दिस विल डिफाइन, यू विल गेट 7-8 marks, or you will even get 16 marks, 15 marks in this question. Aging population has adverse social and economic consequences. Explain with example. क्लास में भी, 500 प्लस में भी, की क्लास में भी, टेस्ट में भी, अगेन दिस इज समथिंग विच इज अ वेरी डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन, सीधा क्वेश्चन था. देयर वाज नथिंग विच वाज डिफरेंट हियर. Present a critical account of Alfred Weber theory of industrial location. So tell me, going by what I have told you now, can I say the best choice would have been question number 2, 7 and 8? ठीक है. बट जैसा मैंने बोला, मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टूडेंट्स, जो मेजॉरिटी है विच इज अबव 90%, बिकॉज द कोर विल नॉट बी प्रिपेयर्ड. और ये देखो हर साल होता है. इट इज नॉट दैट दिस ईयर थोड़ा पेपर इजी आ गया, सो आई एम नॉट जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट दिस. दिस हैपन्स एवरी ईयर. Every year this much of questions, at least 3 questions will be there which will be more or less direct. Why? You know, because geography ko I have simplified it in such a manner and more comprehensively कि एक मैंने template बनाया है. If UPSC goes out of that template, that means UPSC will break the law of examination, which is this. Do you get my point? I make sure that I am covering most of the direct and tricky part. So UPSC will not do that कि वो exceptional ही पूछने लगा. किसी भी एग्जामिनेशन में exceptional कभी इससे ज़्यादा नहीं हो सकता. That means it doesn't plays role in your success. Again and again I have explained this, but किसी को समझ में नहीं आता है because सब अपने आप को over smart समझते हैं. They think that they are the best, most intelligent people in this on this earth. Okay, so that is how the choices should have been made. It depend whether you were prepared in the core. If you were prepared in the core, you will do exceptionally well in this paper. But unfortunately, as I told you, you will see जब result आएगा, जो तुम जानते हो कि you have been with me for so much long time, when I say something, it has a weight. You'll see that again when the result will come, so many of them will be disappointed, so many, majority. And they will again point finger towards where? UPSC. They are doing some kind of impartiality with geography optional. That will be the major view. अब आगे बढ़ते हैं. Let us come back to the compulsory questions में आते हैं. Question number 1A. Describe the concept of altiplanation. So altiplanation is something which is related with the periglacial landscapes. So you must have heard about peneplains, pediplains, peneplanation, pediplanation. सुना है ये? So in such areas, altiplanation is the replacement term. So after so many years of asking very, very out of context exceptional questions, UPSC first time asked a more direct question. And why I'm saying, देखो पहले भी पूछा है basket of topography. If you have seen the previous year papers, that is also a very direct question. But at that time, people were not prepared when it was asked. This time, going by the trend that UPSC has been doing so, always in the classes I explain one thing, that you have to study all the chapters of erosion. All the chapters of erosion properly, particularly related with processes and landforms. And don't leave the periglacial landforms. They can ask you from there as well. So it was something which for me, if you haven't done, you haven't prepared your core. So you shouldn't cry that it is an exceptional question. Then so it was for me a question which should have been answered. What are the important factors responsible for air mass modification? कुछ बोलने की जरूरत है इसमें मुझे? Straightforward. Discuss the hazards associated with rise of sea surface temperatures. Rise of sea surface temperature. Ideally, it should have been prepared. फिर भी hazards associated with rise of sea surface temperatures. So tell me, can we say variety of type of hazards can be there? For example, one type of hazards will be, which will be directly associated with the rise of temperature, like cyclones. But tell me, can we say that there will be other type of hazards? Like for example, if there is rise, if you talk about sea surface temperature is rising, there will be expansion? Will there be expansion in the volume of water? And will it lead to rise in the sea level? Yes, there will be sea level rise. And will it also generate several type of hazards? Yes. So दोनों तरह के hazards के बारे में यहाँ पर mention करना था. ठीक है? Yes, वो direct वाला temperature से related coral bleaching, loss of biodiversity, वो सब होगा definitely. ठीक है? Yes, here also a kind of indirect direct framework होगा. But this is something which required your mind, little bit of mind. But मैंने कैसे तुरंत डिटेक्ट कर लिया? बिकॉज मुझे पता है, आई हैव स्टडीड द टॉपिक ऑफ सी लेवल चेंजेस वेरी प्रॉपरली. इट इज ऑन माई टंग्स. एंड वन ऑफ द कॉज ऑफ सी लेवल चेंज वी नो इज द एक्सपेंशन इन द वॉल्यूम ऑफ सी वाटर, विच इज आउटकम ऑफ व्हाट? विच इज आउटकम ऑफ वार्मिंग. ठीक है? सो आई वॉज एबल टू think from that perspective. Then Gene pool centers are good hope for biodiversity conservation elucidate. So it is again, you can understand that it is a more direct question. Good hope keyword है यहाँ पर, which is under single quotes. So that means you have to be, there is possibility also you have to write. Hope का मतलब क्या है? Can we say that hope is something which can be realized, but there is also a chance it cannot be realized. ठीक है? So can I say I have to write about the benefits and challenges associated with the gene pool centers? Yes or no? दोनों चीजों के बारे में लिखना था. If you can also take one gene pool center and talk about, for example, when you are writing particularly challenge, if you can also talk about how degradation is taking place, how problems are emerging, it will give you good marks. Describe how ecosystem services of Himalayas are essential for highland and lowland sustainability in Asia. ठीक है? So again, a typical, a very, very tricky question that has to be answered. So ecosystem services of Himalayas. So you know, variety of ecosystem services, उसमें break करोगे, and like provisioning services etc etc, जो चार मेजर तरह की ecosystem services होती हैं. So first you should know what is ecosystem services, the types of ecosystem services, and then think from the perspective of Himalayas, how Himalayas are providing these ecosystem services from the perspective of highland and lowland sustainability in case of Asia. ठीक है? So again I would say कि ये एक question था जो, this was one of the most challenging question of paper 1, which you had to essentially write. ठीक है? In environment geography, it is given as in biogeography, but I take this topic under environmental geography. So that is these questions. इसमें कोई choice नहीं है. So you had to attend all these questions. But इसमें भी I would say that there were some tricks here and there, small tricks. None of the questions, however, were the ones which couldn't have been answered, like we have seen in the previous papers. So that is how, in one way, this paper became easier. Then question number 5 was another compulsory question. Interrelationships between social and spatial structure are complex. Explain in the context of socio-spatial dialectic. So when I was teaching marks, I have told you dialectic का meaning क्या होता है? Two-way relationship. ठीक है? So interrelation between social and spatial structures are complex. Explain in the context of socio-spatial dialectic. So इसको हमने directly इस question को discuss नहीं किया है. But tell me, have I discussed this at several places? Remember, was Vidal talking about the same complexity between phase and generative I? Obviously, yes. When we discussed the concept of new cultural geography, which emerged as a part of criticism of humanistic geography. If you remember, जब मैं Marxism पढ़ा रहा था तो within the contribution of Marxism I had discussed. Do you remember that? So, was the theme of new cultural geography the same thing? Were they also speaking the same tone? That humanism, what it had done, it had simplified the relationship between spatial patterns and the cultural social patterns. But did we saw with several examples ki how, when we are talking about the social cultural aspects, there are several intervening or the relationship becomes complex because of variety of factors involved. याद है मैंने एक structure का diagram बनाया था, where we talked about environmental structure, where we talked about political, economic, cultural and psychological, and how they were interlinked to each other, making the relationship very complex? Yes or no? Now, when I have reminded you, read the statement, and don't you think that statement is talking similar? It is on similar lines. Just to explain it, what we did in the class with examples, and it will fetch you very decent marks. I hope you get my point. Because क्यों कह रहा हूँ decent marks? आराम से 50% marks मिल जाएगा, क्योंकि आधे से ज़्यादा लोगों की हवा निकल गई होगी, समझ में भी नहीं आया होगा what the statement is all about. And I am very sure कि तुम में से भी बहुत सारे होंगे जिसको ये समझ में नहीं आया होगा. Now when I am reminding, maybe you are able to recall and are able to connect. How is energy transition seen as an instrument of achieving zero carbon by 2050? This question, if you talk about, is not an easy question. It can be answered generally, but if I answer this question with respect to how much is the contribution of energy sector in the global warming, अगर मेरे पास ये डाटा है और इस ट्रेंड के बारे में पता है, so tell me, will I be able to better justify what I am writing here? Yes or no? और ये हम कहां पर पढ़ते हैं? Where we study this? We study in the basics of global warming. Do you get my point? In the basics of global warming, we basically study this. So again, not a difficult question from my perspective. Protected cultivation assists in healthier and a larger produce. Justify with examples. This is one question I would say that मैंने इसको क्लास में नहीं करवाया बिल्कुल भी. I have talked about conservation, agriculture, etc. in 500 plus and all those, but I haven't talked about protected cultivation, which is a more controlled cultivation. ठीक है? So again, if you knew the term, if you were aware of the concept, you will be able to write something on this. If you are not aware of the concept, again, it is difficult that you will be getting marks in this. Most of the students, however, I would say won't be getting here more than 3, maximum if they are getting it would be 4. ठीक है? There is many type of protected cultivation systems, like the greenhouse cultivation. That is also what? It is a protected cultivation system. Yes, polyhouses. ठीक है? So again, this is one question which was a kind of novelty for the students of guidance. Explain the processes of contagious जो हमने क्लास में पढ़ा है, and hierarchical diffusion in addressing regional imbalances. Tell me, is it a direct question more or less? Because we knew already what is this diffusion processes, contagion and hierarchical. We had to connect it with the regional imbalances topic. ठीक है? जब हम रीजनल इम्बैलेंसेस देखेंगे, पढ़ेंगे, तो I will actually use the theory of diffusion there to explain how it is leading to regional imbalances and how the method can be utilized. Particularly जब हम R.P. Misra model पढ़ेंगे, तो I'll talk about how diffusion is very key factor in addressing the development problem. ठीक है. Then examine the relevance of central place theory of Chrysler in present context. Have we done this question directly? Yes. ठीक है. It is like this. So I told you every year it is like this. 3-4 questions ऐसे होते हैं जो not at all covered होते हैं, and actually majority of them are those which lie in the compulsory part. It has been a trend. UPSC has asked more difficult compulsory questions than the choice based questions. ठीक है. So can we say इस साल भी the trend is repeated? One change which is there is that the difficult compulsory questions were not the first questions. Yes or no? अब देखो, you are part of guidance classes, so you have actually liberty to actually think some of the questions are not so much difficult, like question number 5A. बट बिलीव मी, मेजॉरिटी जो गाइडेंस के स्टूडेंट्स नहीं है उनके लिए ये क्वेश्चन बहुत डिफिकल्ट था. राइटिंग द रिलेवेंट कंटेंट फॉर दैट. आई होप इट इज क्लियर. पेपर 1. सो पेपर 1 के लिए मेरा स्ट्रैटेजी बहुत पहले से, आई कीप ऑन रिपीटिंग दिस. For paper 1, the clear-cut strategy is रट्टाफिकेशन. एक ही स्ट्रैटेजी चलती है पेपर 1 में, वो है रट्टाफिकेशन. जितना ज्यादा रट्टाफिकेशन होगा उतना अच्छा पेपर होगा. पेपर 1 की सबसे खास बात क्या है? You will get direct questions. You will get questions which will be within your range, and thus completing the paper will not become a problem when it comes to paper 1. ठीक है. सो यही फंडा है गाइडेंस में. जितना हम करते हैं, what we do, you have already seen. I don't have to now justify that in front of you. This year most of the map entries were very, you can say, quite traditional and easy map entries. ठीक है. So whether it is Pamban Island, Diga, if you talk about Periyar, Sar Creek, Kodarma, Subarnrekha, all of these were like, एक दो को छोड़ दो, like for example ये Kichyo Palri Lake, if you leave that, Pichi Dam, एक दो छोड़ दें, तो most of them basically were quite traditional, जो पिछले साल के पेपर्स में पूछे जा चुके हैं. ठीक है. So that should have been an area where you should have got good marks. Someone who is writing the exam. Discuss the geopolitical impact of bilateral relation between India and Bhutan. So again, paper 2 is very general. It has become quite general. And thus the challenge in paper 2 always comes to not only having the content but also being able to present the content in a geographical manner. So that becomes a quite challenging task in paper 2. However, if you have practiced well, paper 2 के लिए practice is the key. Paper 1 के लिए rectification is the key. So अब मैं बोल रहा हूं कि practice is the key for paper 2. It doesn't mean that you will not do rectification and you will just keep on practicing. Just I am giving what will make the difference. So discuss the geopolitical impact of bilateral relations between India and Bhutan. So tell me, when I am talking about geopolitical impact, can we say, we can frame this answer in two parts. Can this geopolitical impact be regional impact? Like what is the impact in South Asian region? And can we say it can be also thought of from the perspective of what can be thought of as a global impact? Bhutan is if you talk about relationship between India and Bhutan, when we are talking about more global impact, inevitably China will enter. And the good relationship between India and Bhutan, tell me, are they spoiling the plans of China? Are they kind of spoilers? Yes, they are. Okay. So again, in this context, the answer should have been there, should have been written. As I told you, बाद में इसको elaborate करूँगा एक class में, which I will be taking on YouTube, open class. Discuss the economic significance of volcanic soils in India. So tell me, one volcanic soil is which one? Can we say black soil? Yes, it is the black soil, which is the major volcanic soil in India. Okay. And others, if you talk about, there is some in Andaman and Nicobar, but not very much impact. उसके बारे में कुछ लिख सकते हैं, but mainly the focus will be on the black soils of India. Yes, it is a previous year question. Paper 2 में देखो, you will find people every year arguing that paper 2 is so much dynamic, this, that. But previous year के questions उठा करके देखो, हर बार तुम्हें 25 से 30% questions repeated मिलेंगे one or other form. Every year it is like this. And tell me, मुझे एक सच में बात बताना, you all have written so many exams in your life. कोई पेपर ऐसा था जहां पर तुम्हें more than 50% of expected questions मिल गए थे? There was no, I have not found such questions. वो स्कूल वाली बात छोड़ दो, जब वो हमारा वो घर के बगल वाला टीचर बनाता था पेपर. आई एम नॉट टॉकिंग अबाउट दैट. You will not find, very 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 difficult. So ये जो perception है, this perception, why this perception comes? Because ज़्यादातर लोग ये भूल जाते हैं कि there is choice also in the paper, and combine this with forgetting this choice factor with humans' tendency to focus more on the unknown, and you get the kind of perception most of the people have. There is no doubt कि बहुत सारे तरह के traditional questions नहीं पूछे जा रहे हैं आजकल. There is no doubt about that. Like for example, they haven't asked for quite some time the formation of Himalayas, etc., which used to be very very like favorite questions of UPSC. But still, there are other traditional questions asked from other areas. And the key is what? Completing the syllabus. So that is one. It was a quite easy question. Give a recent account of difference between sugar industry of North and Peninsular in India. एक सीधा question है, which is dealt in almost all the teachers. GS में भी इसको teachers deal करते हैं. Forget about optionals. ठीक है? So again, it is something which was expected that most of the people will be able to do. Then question number 2, landslide is a major problem in Himalayan region. Discuss its causes and mitigation measures. देखो, अब पेपर 2 जहां पर आता है, आई एम लेस rigid about which questions will you choose when it comes to paper 2. Why? Because paper 2 में आज का जो पैटर्न है उसमें मेजॉरिटी ऑफ क्वेश्चंस के फिक्स्ड आंसर्स नहीं है. मेजॉरिटी ऑफ द क्वेश्चंस रिक्वायर लॉट्स ऑफ क्रिएटिविटी. ठीक है? So depending upon which area is strong, which area is weaker, you can go for your set of choice of questions. Still इस बार के पेपर में कुछ ज़्यादा ट्रेडिशनल एरियाज थे. लाइक क्वेश्चन नंबर 2. So landslide is a major problem in Himalayan region. Discuss its causes and mitigation measures. So landslide had happened this year so many times. particularly Uttarakhand में, and again it was in news. So GS में भी पूछा, optional में भी पूछा, so it is not surprising that they have asked about it. Appraise why drought is one of the most common climatic extremes in India. So again, a very straightforward question. You have to talk about the key of explaining this drought, why it is one of the most common climatic extreme, because of the nature of monsoon. Have we done explaining the variability of the nature of the monsoon? Yes or no? The spatial variability, the temporal variability. Okay, and again, when I am saying we have done, I am talking to the July ones, not to the October ones. So that is basically a very straightforward question which you should have talked about, precipitation variability को use करके. Discuss the ecological and economic challenges of river linking in India. Again, a very straightforward question. कि यहाँ पर क्या होगा, पिछले के भी questions में same things, map and examples and case studies. ठीक है, maps, examples and case studies. Appraise why drought is one of the. Appraise का मतलब यहाँ पर ये है कि you have to find the cause in a way. That is basically here appraise. Yes, appraise का मतलब यही होता है, because evaluate ही उसका मतलब evaluate ही होता है. Because see, when I am appraising, suppose I am getting an appraisal, my work done is appraised and accordingly I'll get the appraisal. So it is evaluate. Okay, 3 में अगर हम बात करें, question number 3, discuss the importance of solar energy in future economic development of India. ठीक है, so question is importance of solar energy in future economic development of India. So एक क्लास में 500 में कवर कर किया था, even in we cover in the optional classes energy crisis. So energy crisis या energy security की जब हम बात करते हैं, so tell me, can we say that इसमें 2 parts होंगे. One part will be related with the case of conventional energy and how short it will fall with respect to India when it comes to its future economic demand. ठीक है, that will be the first part. Then second part will be about solar energy, how solar energy will be able to bridge this gap between the shortfall from the conventional sources which are there, how it will be able to do so. So importance of solar energy in future economic development of India. ठीक है, अब इसमें कुछ जोग्राफिकल पर्सपेक्टिव भी डाल सकते हैं. लाइक नॉर्मल हम सोलर की एनर्जी की बात करेंगे तो वी कैन टॉक अबाउट, यस, वो सारा जो अभी स्कीम्स चल रहा है, ऑल दोज यू कैन पुट देयर. पर्टिकुलरली स्कीम्स को लास्ट में रखना है, नॉट एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. जस्ट आई एम सेइंग कि अब इसमें मुझे कुछ जोग्राफिकल पर्सपेक्टिव्स लिंक करने हैं सपोज. सो थिंक अबाउट दिस, दैट कैन आई लिंक that when it comes to India, do we find that there is regional inequality? Tell me. And one of the aspect of regional inequality is if you talk about several northern states, do they have the major source of energy like coal? Are they facing the problem of energy scarcity? Northern states, matlab Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, etc. Yes, they are facing. Future economic development, tell me, will it be very much function of the demographic dividend of these states on the utilization of the demographic dividend provided by these states? Can we say southern states demographic dividend is near to finish? Is it nearing? So tell me, having energy in these states, source of energy, will it be very important for economic development of India? Yes, it will be. And in this, can solar energy play an important role? Yes. You would have already shown by the map of India how the potential of solar energy is in most of the places in India. Okay? So the thing is, if I just think properly, I'll be able to add several demographic और several geographical if you talk about angles. जैसे इस बार 500 में particularly मैंने ये वाला question करवाया था demographic dividend वाला, that how future जो development है and demographic dividend, it is very much there, how it is tackling. ठीक है? So again, when my students are going in the examination, this should have been there in their mind. They could link it. Critically examine the importance of smart city program for solving urban problems in India. Tell me, do we have the framework? Smart city program, does it tries to solve the problem in two manners, city in area and city as area? Yes or no? Keyword here is what? Critically examine. So you have to talk about how it is able to, what are the problems as in the solution of city as area. You have to talk about the slow work, etc., which has been, which is there. The funding problem, several. You can talk about the critically examine city as area. City in area, does it only trying to solve the upper hierarchy problem? Yes or no? Have we seen that the most of the concentration of the population was in the 53 cities we have seen in 2011 census, yaad hai? So is it trying to diversify from 53 to 100? Tell me. But going by the fact that in the next few decades, in fact 3 decades, India is going to see 300 million people added to the urban population. Tell me, is it actually going to solve the problem? I don't think so. So even there are problems with respect to city in area. So I had explained, if you have studied about the smart city program, you'll be able to do. Examine the significance of ecotourism in relation to socio-economic development and biodiversity conservation in India. इतना सीधा क्वेश्चन शायद ही यूपीएससी पूछता है, इस साल पूछा है. So hopefully paper 2 students will be doing better. In this kind of questions, clearly if you talk about, the key will be the examples and case studies in such type of general questions. ठीक है? So examine the significance of ecotourism in relation to the socio-economic development and biodiversity conservation in India. एक दो मैप बनाने हैं where you will talk about the potential areas of ecotourism, कहाँ पर हो सकता है, what type of biodiversity is lying in those areas particularly. So what would be conserved, for example, think about if you know the uniqueness of or the characteristics of biodiversity of the northeast region or the Himalayan region or the Western Ghats or the Andaman and Nicobar Islands or several plateau regions of India. Tell me, ये mapping aspect helpful होगा? Will it help you to fetch better marks? obviously it will do. So ये जो specifics है, this is the problem that most of the students will be missing these specifics. So जहाँ पर actually work करना चाहिए, जो mapping का aspect है, जहाँ पर they should be actually doing very much hard work, they are not doing that hard work. याद है मैंने तुम लोगों को पेपर 1, पेपर 2 के बारे में बताया था. One of the best way to tackle paper 2 is you prepare some regional frameworks for India. Tell me, अगर वो regional frameworks prepared होते, like which national park is lying in which region, etc., would it be helpful in writing this answer? Question number 4. Discuss the reserves, distribution and production of all varieties of coal in India. Again, a very traditional question. Keyword, you don't have to forget, discuss the reserves, distribution and production. So when you are talking about reserves, you'll do discussion that this is the given reserves. But do we expect that there will be more deep-seated reserves? Yes, there is expectation. The problem is our inventory with respect to such deep-seated reserves is lesser. Distribution, when you are talking about, you'll talk about distribution. Can we add with distribution the problem of distribution of coal in India, that it is concentrated only in few parts of India? Obviously, yes. When it comes to production, tell me, was there coal crisis this year? Yes or no? So again, you can understand कि ये क्वेश्चन क्यों पूछा गया होगा. ठीक है, मैंने जीएस के लिए इसको डिस्कस किया था एंड ऑप्शनल में भी हमने क्वेश्चंस पूछे थे. डिस्कस द salient features of east flowing rivers of India. Again, tell me, salient features of east flowing rivers of India. There is a topic which you normally study, difference between Himalayan and peninsular rivers पढ़ते हैं, ठीक है. सो उसके अंदर से, क्योंकि यहाँ पे डिफरेंस नहीं बताना है, यू जस्ट हैव टू एक्सट्रैक्ट द पॉइंट्स फ्रॉम देयर. सो हिमालयन रिवर्स के भी जो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स पढ़े हैं और पेनिनसुलर, बिकॉज टेल मी, आर बोथ मेनी ऑफ द रिवर्स ऑफ हिमालयन आर ड्रेनिंग ईस्टवर्ड and peninsular are also draining eastward. So you have to write both of them. ठीक है, and that is how you will be writing this question. सीधा question है, because here there is no trick, they are simply saying describe. इसका मतलब explanation भी नहीं चाहिए. ठीक है. Critically examine the problems of interstate border disputes. ठीक है. सो देयर वाज अ बॉर्डर डिस्प्यूट इन द नॉर्थ ईस्ट इंडिया. सो उसके कंटेक्स्ट में पूछा गया था. आई थिंक दे कवर्ड दिस इवन इन योर न्यूज़ लेटर में कवर हुआ था. ठीक है, न्यूज़ लेटर में बहुत सारे टॉपिक्स कवर हुए हैं. आई विल शो यू, आई हैव दैट लिस्ट, बट अभी आई एम जस्ट फाइनलाइजिंग दैट लिस्ट. डिस्कस द सेलिएंट फीचर्स ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट टाइगर in India. So most of the people will not apply what they have learned in environment ecology when they'll talk about the project tiger. But we will do, मैं क्लास में इसी तरह से पढ़ाता हूँ project tiger. So you'll see that जब हम project tiger पढ़ेंगे या फिर biosphere reserves पढ़ेंगे, so we will use how the principles of ecology. Do you know that in our topic of environment geography, paper 1, there is first topic, principles of ecology. Have you seen that? ठीक है. सो वो प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ इकोलॉजी अप्लाई करके ही हम एक्सप्लेन करते हैं हाउ, इफ यू टॉक अबाउट दीज प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज आर डिजाइंड ऑन व्हाट प्रिंसिपल्स. ठीक है. सो सेम प्रिंसिपल्स अप्लाई टू प्रोजेक्ट टाइगर एज वेल. एंड अगेन डिस्कशन करना था सेलिएंट फीचर्स का. Describe the problems of cloud burst in India, giving suitable examples. Again, you know, cloud burst हर साल होता है. So it is this year they have asked. Almost it is happening every year. This year, however, they have asked. So it is not something which shouldn't have been answered. मैंने क्लास में cloud burst का mechanism समझाया है तुम्हें, ठीक है? So using that context of paper 1, the concepts which have been learnt, you apply there and talk about in India which areas are the areas where the problem of cloud bursts would be more common. So mostly it will be the mountainous and hilly areas. ठीक है? Discuss the role of watershed management for soil and water conservation in the hilly regions of India. ठीक है? So how watershed management works, role of watershed management. So again ये straight forward question है, उन्होंने उसको link कर दिया hilly regions के साथ. ठीक है? So in our syllabus, if you have seen, there is a topic of backward regions, and within backward regions there is the hill area development topic. ठीक है? So this is the question which is directly from hill area. जब हम हिल एरिया और इस तरह के बैकवर्ड एरियाज की बात करते हैं, तो द मेथड ऑफ डेवलपमेंट दैट वी यूज, एटलीस्ट थियोरेटिकली, इट इज ऑलवेज वाटरशेड डेवलपमेंट. ठीक है? वाटरशेड मैनेजमेंट और वाटरशेड डेवलपमेंट. सो अगेन इट वाज, फॉर मी इट वाज अ वेरी ट्रेडिशनल क्वेश्चन विच विल फेच यू decent marks depending upon how much examples etc. you have cited. Critically examine the relevance of Ravenstein's law of population migration with reference to India. क्या मैंने इसको क्लास में करवाया था तुम लोगों को? When we were discussing the Ravenstein laws, इंडिया का ही एग्जाम्पल लेकर के बताया था. Do you remember that how the things are changing? Do you remember we took the example of Kolkata and Delhi, Mumbai with reference to Bihar. So again this is something which was to be expected. Ashok Mitra classification method of Indian cities. ठीक है? Again a very straightforward question. Just few days back हमने इसको कुछ टाइम पहले ही किया है, अशोक मित्रा क्लासिफिकेशन, इफ यू रिमेंबर. सो अगेन यू कैन सी दैट सीधे सीधे क्वेश्चंस आए हैं पेपर 2 में. Six, explain the impact of tropical cyclones and western disturbances on the climate of India. Can you see that? Can you see how much easy paper was this year? Examine the critical issues of groundwater resources in India. Straightforward question. क्या मैंने critical problems of groundwater resources करवाया है क्लास में? Describe the structure and relief features of Deccan Plateau. Have we done that? Deccan Plateau, have we seen that how many parts of Deccan Plateau are there? Is it a direct question? Yes, it is a very direct question. Critically examine how Panchayati Raj system is catalyst in decentralized planning in India. एकदम straightforward. इतना easy पंचायती राज का question पुराने साल के पेपर उठा करके देख लो. They haven't asked in recent times. Identify the major industrial corridors of India and discuss the characteristics of Bengaluru-Mumbai corridor. We haven't done transportation geography, so we haven't discussed, but we will discuss the corridor part. Is a very important issue which is there right now. Assess the growth of multinational corporations in liberalized economic environment of India. So MNCs directly syllabus में दिया हुआ है. Liberalization is also, globalization is given in the syllabus. So again liberalized environment में उनका how assess the growth of MNCs, how their growth has taken place in India. What are the factors which have led to their growth in India? So again a question which would have been answered. I'm little bit running here because already we have spent a lots of time. And as I told you, I will be taking up a more detailed analysis of each of them. So just I am trying to show you कि कितना paper, particularly this year, it was quite easy. Examine how information and communication technology has boosted the development of certain regions in India. We will see that जब हम information technology की बात करेंगे तो we will see that how compression of time and space is taking place due to information and technology, and how it helps in if you talk about the diffusion phenomena particularly. ठीक है? So again, that is one help beside the management aspects. Beside in itself it is an industry. ठीक है? Discuss the command area development program and its impact on eliminating regional inequalities in India. सीधा question. Critically assess the status of balance of trade in India and suggest some measures to combat the issues. Will UPSC continue with this easy trend? We don't know about UPSC, maybe or may not be. If we go by the previous trends जो चलते थे UPSC में, they were more like 1 year easy, 1 year difficult. 2017, 2015 very difficult, 2016 comparatively easy, 2017 very difficult, 2018 comparatively easy, then 2019 very difficult. It was expected that 2020 will also be very difficult or easy. ठीक है? But UPSC changed that trend. 2020 was comparatively, paper 2 particularly was too much general, which made it very difficult. However, last year also paper 1 was on the easier part. So this trend of being easy comparatively with respect to paper 1 has continued for the second year. ठीक है? However, अब इस बार पेपर 2 भी बहुत इजी आया. नॉर्मली होता क्या है यूपीएससी में, जब एक पेपर टफ आता है तो नेक्स्ट पेपर दे बैलेंस. दिस ईयर दे हैव डन आस्क्ड both the papers very easy. ठीक है? The thing is we can hope for the best and prepare for the worst. और जब मैं बोल रहा हूँ prepare for the worst, can you understand that preparing for the worst would mean that I have to more consolidate the core. The core is the area which I have to be very, very consolidated. If the core is strong, you'll see that the paper will not be difficult. And if you don't believe me, go back to the Guidance YouTube channel, look into the previous year discussions जो मैंने लिए हुए हैं. ठीक है? And you will find कि मैं जैसे अभी तुम लोगों को बता रहा हूँ कि इसको ऐसे करना था, इसको वैसे करना था, वहां पर भी मैंने इसी तरह से बताया है. हाउ जस्ट विद द हेल्प ऑफ द क्लास मटेरियल यू कुड हैव स्कोर्ड गुड मार्क्स. ठीक है? Yes, that is the key. You have to cover the entire syllabus. Many students come to me कि सर क्या मैं इसको छोड़ दूं, ये छोड़ दूं. यार देखो, the thing is UPSC has become quite unpredictable and we don't know from where the easy questions would be asked. So if you ask me that if I leave this, I would not suggest. And ये जो leaving वाला और ये सब जो चीजें होती है, it is for the last stage of study. When once you have covered the syllabus, once you have revised 1 or 2 times, then when you are doing the revision in the last part, in the last stage, then you can skip की, then you can choose कि ये वाला ज़्यादा मुझे important लग रहा है तो इस बार इसको मैं ज़्यादा focus करता हूँ. But this kind of questions many students asking कि इसको छोड़ दूँ, उसको छोड़ दूँ, I don't think it is really justified. You have to prepare the full syllabus because अब पहले जैसे questions नहीं आ रहे हैं कि they are asking you one topic only. Even if we are saying here the paper was easy, did you see that how they are connecting 2 topics with each other? Obviously yes. ठीक है? So the best तरीका क्या है कि we prepare ourselves in the core areas and well prepared in the core area. साथ में एक current affairs जो ऑलरेडी मैं तुम लोगों को प्रोवाइड कर रहा हूँ न्यूज़लेटर. ऑलरेडी जिसने भी अभी तक न्यूज़लेटर्स पढ़े हैं, यू वुड हैव सीन दैट हाउ मच यूजफुल इट वाज फॉर दिस ईयर एग्जामिनेशन, सो मच यूजफुल. एंड अभी जब हम विल प्रोवाइड यू द एनालिसिस, यू विल सी कि कितने सारे क्वेश्चंस उससे आए. And so many places where you would have used, whether it is case studies, whether it is examples. So we are giving you a complete package. अब अगर तुम अपनी फियर की वजह से, अपनी टेंडेंसीज की वजह से उस पैकेज को यूज मत करो, एंड स्टिल यू कीप इन सर्च ऑफ कंटेंट, देन अगेन nobody can help you out. And that is the key that you have to understand. ठीक है.